All right. So how do you fix a felony?
Well, depending on the state you're in and the circumstances of the alleged occurrence or potential incident that might have happened, you get a few options. For me, I had a DPTI process,
Okay.
which is a pretrial intervention, which essentially meant that I could go to a rehabilitation program, drug rehabilitation program, and proceed through that process. And if I succeed through that process and plan, then they'd be willing to throw my case out.
Okay.
It's a pretty good deal.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it was pretty helpful. Rehab wasn't as bad as you might have assumed. I mean, it was absolutely bad, and especially if there's absolutely people out there that really you need that extra help. Whereas I kind of didn't, unfortunately, and it was just more apparent and obvious as I went through the process and went through the things. It was kind of traumatic, honestly, going through that,
Wow.
not having necessarily the same level of problems and the things you have to do.
Right.
It was an interesting experience, to say the least. Random drug tests 3 to 4 times a week, many of which you could also fail completely by accident, which is happening to me a lot. Because right after all that happened, I had to quit drinking as well, which was not related. And I loved craft beer at the time. So that was a challenge.
Yeah.
I was like when I first got into
Andrew in Tampa.
Yeah, I'm in Craft Beer City. And they're like, yeah, you can't have alcohol during this program.
What?
I'm like, what? But I went to jail for something else. And they're like, yeah, you can't do that or alcohol. Nothing. Yeah, it's all the same. And I was like, what? But in my mind, it wasn't. So it was difficult to kind of deal with. So I was getting all these extra blows, I thought at the very least I could still do that, go to the brewery. No, that wasn't allowed either.
Surprise.
And then I thought, well, I'll just work out and I'll get really in shape. And, that'll be the plan. And I started doing that. And that also became a problem.
How's that a problem?
Well, because when you start working out, right, and you get into protein shakes and supplements and things, a lot of those can false positives with the tests. Right. So again, I'm trying to do these things for the betterment of myself.
Come on, give me a break here.
Find good hobbies and habits.
Yeah.
And then those were causing problems. So again, it was just anywhere I turned, I kept feeling no matter what I did, it was the wrong thing.
Right. Damn. What'd you do?
I kept going.
Okay.
Honestly, the only thing I could do is to keep going and keep moving through it. Even despite false positives, which there's really no beneficial outcome. There's no upside to that. It's you come in, you do your test, you fail. So now you get repercussions.
Yeah.
You get treated as if you failed anyway. You might as well have relapsed at that point because you get treated basically the same way. You have exactly. So it was massively demoralizing for me, going through that process, going through all of that, especially as somebody that didn't feel they had, a similar issue. And I started to believe I did and started to get into really weird places because that was the only thing I could do. It was hard. That was the hardest part of the whole process, was going through all that.
And how long was that? Was that a year?
It was a year.
A year. Wow.
I was also trying to get married at the time.
Right.
I was in the process of buying a home, my first home.
Wow.
And had my daughter. We were actively trying to have a child during this time too.